So Yasmine, she is the director of the fund, emergency fund for children, actually. That's called Education Cannot Wait. It's a very important fund, was established around the World Humanitarian Summit some years ago. And it really is to highlight and to focus on the fact that education exactly cannot wait. So even when we do humanitarian emergency response, we cannot forget the next generation by letting the children drop out of school. So with that brief introduction, Yasmine, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be back and launch our report for 2019 in Geneva. We launched our 2018 report here as well, so it's becoming tradition. First of all, let me say a few words about Lebanon, the tragedy that I think has broken all of our hearts. Education Cannot Wait already has made an investment of $15 million for education allocated to Syrian refugees, Lebanese children who are especially marginalized, and Palestine refugees in UNRWA schools. Now, with the explosion and the tragedy that took place last week, we are currently undertaking assessments, working with the Ministry of Education in Lebanon, UNESCO, civil society organizations, to assess the damage, which is at the current standing at 120 destroyed schools, risking to lose 50,000 children and youth from returning to school anytime soon. And on the basis of this assessment, we will do an emergency release of funding, additional funding. Now, for the annual results report, Stronger Together in Crisis. It's an important report also from a UN perspective. Stronger Together in Crisis means that we have also moved on the new way of working and bringing UN agencies, host governments, and civil society organizations and private sector together to actually deliver through joint programming. And this is what the report shows, that we are stronger together and we can reach much further and much deeper when we work in joint programming through the new way of working that is advocated for by the Secretary General in his reform. Today, Education Cannot Wait, which is a very new fund, as a result, and as comes out in the report, we have reached a total of 3.5 million children and youth in conflict, crisis-affected countries, including refugee hosting countries, and have made investments in over 30 humanitarian crisis contexts. Of those, close to 50% are girls. Our target are 60% girls, but we are climbing closer with almost 50%. 30% of the beneficiaries that are benefiting from our investments and joint programs are refugees. 30% are refugees. The total number of forced displacement populations, children and youth, are 45%, 15% internally displaced so far. And children with disabilities are close to 25,000, and that's also an area where we are making headway to move fast as one of our top priority areas. Now, what the report shows is, as I said, if we work together and also make sure that education is inclusive, that no one is left behind, and that it actually delivers quality education, meaning school feeding, which we do very closely with World Food Program, psychosocial services and mental health, teacher training, and infrastructure, and ensuring that there is a continuity in the education. We have also seen, which is also verified in the report, a growing investment in education in conflict and crisis. As some of you will know, a few years ago in 2015, 2.6% of all humanitarian funding went into education. And that was one of the very reasons that Education Cannot Wait was created, as Jen said, at the World Humanitarian Summit by development ministers and the United Nations and civil society under the leadership of Gordon Brown, who is also the UN Special Envoy for Global Education and the chair of the Education Cannot Wait's high-level steering group. 2.6% in 2015, and today, thanks to the collective effort in the broader Education Cannot Wait community, we hit, prior to COVID-19, 5.1% of humanitarian funding going to education in conflict, crisis, and forced displacement. So that is, it's a five-fold increase from 2015. Education Cannot Wait has mobilized $662 million that we are dispersing among UN agencies and civil society. Still, a lot needs to be done. Humanitarian appeals are only funded by 43% when it comes to education. There is a lack of funding at 57%. The UN Secretary General has recently made a strong plea for strengthening education as a response to COVID-19 in crisis and forced displacement, and issued and launched his policy brief last week. The Secretary General in his brief estimates that the funding gap for education globally is $1.5 trillion a year. So we are speaking very big money here, and we are speaking about an enormous gap. To give you some very key concrete examples before I wrap up, of the work that we have done together with UN agencies and NGOs and governments and private sector, we have increased the primary enrollment ratio for refugee children in Uganda, which is the biggest refugee hosting country in Africa, from 53% to 75%. In Afghanistan, where our investment started with as low as 2% reaching girls, we are today reaching 60% of our beneficiaries being girls in Afghanistan. We adopt a whole of education approach. I've given you examples of that, taking a very holistic approach. Finally, what have we done in terms of COVID-19 response? And when the WHO declared COVID-19 as a pandemic, Education Cannot Wait, the Global Fund, acted with an unprecedented speed, and in early April and up to date have delivered $60 million across 33 countries affected by crisis to ensure remote learning, psychosocial services, continued school feeding, and also to pay the salaries of teachers who are not able to physically be present at work. I will conclude by saying this, that Education Cannot Wait appeals to all its donors as an immediate need on the amount of $310 million for us to be able to continue to deliver education during and in the immediate aftermath of COVID-19, and to do through the UN system with strong government leadership and a strong support and engagement by civil society and private sector. We want the UN reform to succeed in the midst of COVID-19. It's the 75 years commemoration of the United Nations today. Invest in Education Cannot Wait, because we are delivering on the reform proposal as we are speaking on the ground, and results and learning outcomes are showing. And I want to thank you all for your patience, for your excitement in the work that we are doing, and for putting education at the forefront of building and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals for those who are left furthest behind in refuge, in crisis and natural disaster, and now who are doubly affected because of COVID-19. We are here for them, and we will not give up until we reach every single one of the 75 million children and youth with your help and your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sherif. And I will